Hello, everybody. Welcome to our World Today Viennese Perspective, the discussion that we have every week about presenting the news in a different way. We're very glad to be here today, and we have some fun topics, some less fun topics to talk about. But we're going to start with a very demure, very mindful trend and why and how the media is talking about it, and what we can learn about it, because it's pretty interesting. For those who aren't on TikTok, we're going to catch you up, don't worry. And then we'll go to the fact that China and Russia are training their military together. And we'll talk about the Telegram CEO talking about Russia and the fact that he was arrested. And we never talked about it, but basically what Telegram is saying about the reasons why he was arrested. And we'll finish by Australia and a little bit of culture there with their new bill about not responding to your boss after work hours and pretty much like your right to disconnection, digital disconnection. A very good program for today. I'm looking forward to starting. So let's do it right now. Um, I've seen a lot of very demure, very mindful videos and jokes in the past 2 weeks, and I have participated in them myself. But a person that I've seen do that several times is Sage, who did the research as well for today on the article that she's going to sum up for us. So Sage, would you mind catching up the audience on what is this trend and why it's important to talk about it today?
Yeah, it's so widespread all over the internet. It almost feels like it needs no introduction. But I think if you haven't seen it, the very demure, very mindful trend, okay, how do you explain it in a nutshell? It's
It's
basically
Demure.
it's mindful. No, yeah. Um, it's basically this trend. It started with this influencer Jules LeBron, and she started making these videos where she's basically saying, and I think in the first video, the most iconic video, right? She's like in her car and like she's about to go to work, at least in the context of the scene. She's like, you see how I'm doing my makeup? Very demure, very mindful. Like she's saying, I'm not gonna do a green cut crease, like green dramatic green eyeshadow. I don't even know what a cut crease is, but that's the
You
quote.
be classy. You just be a classy
You
lady,
be a
basically.
classy lady. She's like, this isn't, she's like, you don't show up to work looking like a clown, ladies. This isn't a fashion show. You show up and you know, you look modest. Demure, so just to clear the air, right? The definition of demure that I found online was reserved, shy, or modest, right? And it's usually applied to women. And before it was meant to refer to women who they didn't dress too ostentatiously. They didn't reveal too much of their bodies. They weren't loudly trying to attract attention, right? From like men or anyone who they presume would be interested in them, right? They're kind of just like um just not trying to attract a lot of attention. Sometimes it was used to mean like women who don't like speak up or they're not too loud, they're not too what's the word? I don't know, like they're kind of a quiet presence. They're not like they don't make themselves known a lot. And then that kind of became like not as used because it was thought of as like a little bit like sexist because there's this it's saying like, oh, if you're a woman, you should basically just kind of be quiet, don't be too outspoken or loud, and just kind of look pretty, but not too um what's the word? Not too like don't be too like revealing, don't be
Sure,
too like
sure. Yeah.
so and that some people were saying, oh, that's kind of sexist thing. So that's this article I found in the BBC.
So
Um
basically, the article was saying that
yeah,
it may be a sexist trend, um, if
yeah.
I understand correctly. And yeah, so as a person, because we read the article, right? It starts well. Well, BBC starts with very demure, very mindful. Are we missing the joke of viral trends? Um, and the first sentence is like, if Brat described our wild and unapologetic, messy summers, then exemplary manners, politeness, and being a stickler for rules is what's taking us into autumn. And it feels like BBC Inter wants um, to include like, hey, this is not how we view feminism today. And kind of be there's a little like level of outrage in it, but outrage that they felt would maybe cater to, I don't know how to say this word, but to a certain audience. The problem is like audience, feminist or not, are just loving this trend.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like it's a case of sexism. It feels like BBC, they kind of missed the mark on trying to cater to an audience right now.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
it's my feeling, but how do you feel about that? Because it felt like the vibe of the beginning of the article wasn't the vibe that I was feeling from this trend, and I was like, sexist? How? And yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like sometimes things that many people like take for granted can be
yeah.
sexist or something like that, right? Like you can be like, oh, well, I thought this was okay, but it really wasn't, right? I don't know, as I can't get myself to feel differently about this right now. I just feel like I just feel like it's not. It's fine because first of all, the whole overall tone of it is kind of like sarcastic or like it's kind of a parody. Jules LeBron, she kind of went on with the intention of like kind of parodying a little bit or poking fun at those standards, right? Like that way of thinking of being like, you've got to be presentable, girls be careful how you dress, that kind of thing. Like she was kind of poking fun at it and I feel like that was just totally baked into her tone from the beginning. Do you guys agree? Like
I
she
I
do.
feel like it's just funny and awesome.
yeah, I don't
And
know, it's just
I feel like it actually represents a healing.
a healing.
It's not sexist. I think it represents a healing of um like where we're at in consciousness. I guess maybe you could speak to more like a feminine healing where like you don't have to be, you can just be authentically yourself, and you don't have to be all out there. You can just be like not trying to like grab all the attention. You can just be yourself, and like that's good, and that's enough, and that's um like your authenticity is what is attractive, right?
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, I totally agree. I
Yeah.
felt that too. It's like coming full circle. Because before like the being like demure was kind of sometimes seen as like suppressing yourself a little bit. Like be quiet, be shy, be reserved, be modest, don't be ostentatious, right? As a woman. But and then there's this whole concept that's like, no, it's fine. Like you're free to do anything you want, present yourself how you want, like make your makeup as like extravagant, crazy as you want, dress as revealing as you want. But I think it does kind of represent a healing of like, well, yeah, you can do anything you want, but it's kind of like it's nice to like not you don't want to like you want to value and respect yourself. You don't want just anyone and everyone being able to like access gain access to um I don't know, you like
It's almost
vulnerable
like a
parts of
healing
you.
of what real freedom is. Like, is it really putting yourself all out
Yeah,
there? And maybe you do have to
but
do that for a time because that's healing for you. But I think
oh
that
yeah.
the truth of it is like what you're just saying, what we're coming to right now, that's what real freedom is like this, just being authentic and
You.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
being you doesn't really it doesn't look the same to from one woman to another, and one woman may want long dresses while the other may want short dresses, and that's totally fine. And I really love Isaiah's points there. And I also would add that if we really want to go into the sexism stuff, in the context of the video that went viral, it was about like work appropriate clothing, and
Right.
it had been pretty much going on for a while on the internet, actually on TikTok, that work dress codes were not understood by everybody, and you need to dress a certain way to go to work, and that's fine. And she made fun of that. I pretty much agree that it was baked into the tone. Um, but also she was speaking truth. I think like the best humor is like the part where it's like grounded into truth. Like, hey ladies, it may even be like addressed to young people, like, hey, this is how you do your makeup and dress for work. And if nobody taught you that, then that's it. And with a bit of humor so that you'll never forget it. And the last thing that I want to say is that sometimes oftentimes even, we are witness to how a language is changed with like the societal changes and trends of how it is used, or how it is how word is added to a language. And I think this is one of these times, pretty much. Like, if this is one of the times where the urban use of the words, especially because it's less used right now, will be completely changed by the way we use them. We are the creators and the progressive change of a language. A language is moving. And so, like, if you try to go into anthropomorphic semantics about the words on trend that everyone finds funny, you risk missing the point that the trend was actually trying to make. And and you have to be careful about that. Yes, research your sources. Yes, try to explain the history of the world, but also like try to read the room about like how it actually is. No, don't write your article too fast, maybe. Um, I don't know. And nobody, it didn't feel like responding to BBC, like, are we missing the joke in the viral trend? I feel like nobody missed the joke because it was so natural. It's
Yeah.
just a joke. It's like, it's ridiculous. That's what worked. It's that it was ridiculous. And people used
I
it to say, like, you see how I ate my sandwich? Very demure, very mindful. And you
exactly.
get
Exactly. It's
crumbs
like,
everywhere. That's making fun.
yeah,
That's not
it's
your
making
real
fun, right?
intention. Yeah.
It's absurdism. And that's the point. It's like you see how I'm reading this book? Very demure, very mindful, I'm a proper lady when I read this book. It's just like, come on, like
Yeah.
I'm not enforcing any standard on you. I'm just trying to be like
Right.
ridiculous. Yeah. So
That's true. That's very true.
yeah.
Nadia, are you feeling more clearer about this trend? Because Nadia is on TikTok, so she didn't know where it came from.
I am loving this conversation. And when Sage brought it up, I actually saw the original video and I didn't know that was the original. I really thought that she was telling me that this is Demure. This is very classy. And it was funny to see how widespread it got. And I was just thinking that, Europeans are naturally, culturally very less quiet than Americans. Like we're so loud, like certain states are so loud. So we would actually be thinking that Europeans are very demure, very quiet. And it's just a cultural thing. It's not like, oh, they're the standard of how women should be. Instead, it's just like, it's just how you are.
Yeah, it's how you are, but also like Learn to be how you are while accommodating the culture of where you are, so work culture or country culture. And that goes back to Isaiah's point, which is that the video was actually pretty much healing for a lot of people. And that's why it's so good, and that's why Jules is receiving so much from it. And we talked about it a little bit before the live, and the fact she was able, I saw personally that she was able to get out of a ghetto and get her best friend out of a ghetto by finding an apartment with 2 bedrooms, so that they could be completely supported and pretty much like thriving and living comfortably. And she's really using it for good stuff, first of all. And then Isaiah was talking about how she could afford like a surgery because of it. And it was just so good. It feels like, it seems like everybody agrees that she's found a way, she's found a branding, she's found a life purpose, and maybe it will change over time, but there's something that she gave to everybody there, and good for her, and a good amount of laughs for us. And then yeah, we move on to something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And it, oh yeah.
I also agree that the language has definitely changed now. Like now we use Demure for something that is very enjoyable and delightful. So
Very cutesy.
yeah.
Very cutesy and also just that the trend, it's like a perfect trend. I feel like it's kind of a healing thing as well for her and for many people, because Jules LeBron is, a trans woman too. And so it's kind of cool to be like, it's like not, it's weird. It's like this really funny mix that just hits just right about like, it's between being like I am normal, like I am like a proper lady. I am with it. I'm not some like weird out there person. But at the same time, making fun of that, like making fun of the strict enforcement of those standards too, that people sometimes place on themselves. So it's both at the same time, and that's the genius of it. It could only have come organically, right?
Yeah,
Like being like,
what just came to me was like, I feel like the video was like healing authenticity.
yeah,
Because she was just sharing herself authentically. And then she's able to use this though to like go deeper in her authentic self.
with
like
her transition.
right, with like be able to like use it for her transition, which she's openly shared online
Yeah.
About. And so it's like so full circle. It's so cool.
Yeah,
I
a
love
lot
it.
of full circle.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Just love it.
Yeah. Granville, what did you think? And are you enjoying being very demure and very mindful in your daily life?
I hope my face said it all.
What did it say? Can you translate?
Oh,
I think that's
Actually,
pretty
so Granville's
I'm not.
post, Granville posted like something like, if I see you very demure, very mindful, one more time, I'm going to, I don't know, I forgot the rest.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's the yeah.
Yeah,
That's very
so it was,
cool.
I think it probably hit South Africa a little bit out of context, and so before you realize the true intent of it actually just became irritating and significantly irritating, and so. I can't say that I am thrilled by the concept. I feel like, and I'm going to just say this, and guys, forgive me. I know you guys actually appreciate it. It just feels like frivolous, something frivolous. And honestly, like, sometimes, and I know, we encourage everybody to have fun and whatever else, but it feels so frivolous that it kind of feels like the value of it has been lost in translation. So I can't say that I'm thrilled by the entire concept.
Yeah, I can understand. It felt like when you posted, it felt like you saw more of the consequences of a trend, obviously, because it's become viral. Uh, without like seeing the original. And I feel like the original, I felt confused too when I didn't see the original because I didn't see the original at first. When I saw the original, I was like, oh, yes, yeah. There was just a vibe to it. But yeah, I think like, especially on Facebook, it got a little bit out of hand. That's okay. That's a trend. Yeah, it
It's a
transforms.
very it's a very American thing to do, to create a slang for Demure and like get very excessive with it. It's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I think sometimes obviously sometimes if you catch it downstream from the source, there will be a
Yeah.
lot of cases of it where it's like, okay, like you perhaps you didn't quite nail it.
Yeah.
Like you're just kind of trend hopping, and you're just like, I totally get that. But when it's applied correctly, that's when the magic happens, you know?
Yeah,
So
because honestly, nothing felt magical about it at all. At all, at all. I hope that helps you understand my enamorment with this concept.
Yeah, and we don't all have the same points of view on everything. That's okay. Like the whole point of this was to not not really like be too serious about it. And so you like it, you hate it, it's fine, but like, don't make whole articles or rants about it. Like, just it's fine,
Mhm.
So you pretty much like represent this energy and I like that. Yeah. So should we move on to the next stuff? So the next stuff, I don't know who researched it, but it's like the CEO of Telegram was arrested, and Telegram has expressed its stage as well, I think. The CEO of Telegram was arrested in Paris, and the company has expressed that he has nothing to hide. But basically, like a lot of people are upset with the company, and I guess with reason because like it's become the new company to curate like hacks, violence, and also misinformation. And there is a lot of misinformation about the Israel-Palestine conflict, for example. There is a lot of misinformation about Russia, and because it's a Russian battleground, like people suspect that it's also where people just like people just get to try to strategize where they cannot in in the rest of the world. And I think the countries are upset because like there is no basically legislation into it. Like Telegram would call it control because it's like encrypted messages, like secret conversations and things like that. But um, I think a lot of people have gone up to par to make sure that their social media is encrypted, especially like with private messages. And Telegram takes it to like complete secrecy, which can be very difficult to monitor when you are in the threats of like global war or terrorist attacks. And so I guess it was detained for that. Basically, the warrant was offenses related to the app. And Telegram said something like, you cannot detain the CEO, the founder of the app, like the manager for the use that the user are making of this app. So Sage, would you like to add a few insights before we start talking about it, basically?
yeah, so it's definitely like an interesting story, and it kind of felt like it was coming out of left field, Pavel Durov is like from Russia, but like he actually I believe so. In all the articles I was reading, it said he was a dual citizen of the UAE, like United Arab Emirates, where Dubai is and France. So those are his two citizenships. It didn't mention that he was a Russian citizen. Um, he had a falling out with the Russian government in like 2017 or 2018 because he was about free speech, or well, maybe we can't say that, but maybe it was strategic. But basically, like his app, like he refused to let the Russian government like censor it because like there were often people would use it to express views that were critical of the Russian government. And he was like, no, I won't like let it be censored. He was also the owner of VK Kontaktia, which is a Russian social media app, and that one was also basically um, acquired by, like, seized essentially by the Russian government and a Russian company, but that is pretty much the Russian government. So that happened. So he has a history of like, supporting not like critical views of the Russian government, right? Or just people can say what they want, and that's right, not cool in Russia, according to the government. So, but yeah, he was arrested because like of not complying with law enforcement when it comes to like they were like, we need if there's like drug traffickers or terrorists or other criminals or even like Telegram like can be used to facilitate like sexual trafficking of minors and stuff and the distribution of like that kind of content. And so they were saying like you have to allow us access to that. Like if there's any of that going on your app, we need to know about that. We need to be able to like this can't just be like a safe space for people to do anything they want, like criminal activity. So yeah. And but he was arrested for that in France, which I thought was interesting. Like I was like, why would you arrest the CEO of I don't know. I guess failing to comply with law enforcement in a way. But yeah. But Telegram, I mean, it is like a really popular, I think it's like the most popular social media app in just Russia and Ukraine, but it's also really popular in like a lot of the former Soviet Union. I think the Middle East, right? If I'm not mistaken. And like it's used a lot for getting information out about like the Ukraine war from the Ukrainian side, too. So activists have used it a lot. So it's kind of like, yeah, an interesting landscape here. So what do you guys think? How do we navigate this landscape? Where does the truth lie in it? And what do you feel about it?
Yeah, I, it's a little bit weird, definitely. There's also a lot of things that people feel like it's like kind of Telegram was more effective than Cambridge Analytica in its time to like spread misinformation, political or other, in the platforms, and so people fear that the most extremist views are being shared there in groups of like 200,000 people, and it cannot be monitored or filtered in any way, or the thing is weaker. I do think that the article of BBC there was definitely biased. I do think there is an upset as well from them because of the fact that Telegram hosted a lot of far-right groups that terrorized the country 3 weeks ago. So I think you might have felt the kind of like tension in the article about that. But it's really like, the trafficking and human trafficking and terrorist threats are really like a big problem on top of the conspiracy theories. It's like it's kind of like having a family group, but with 200,000 people, and people are just like spreading misinformation and nobody's correcting them, or people are believing it because they're not educated in choosing where their sources lie. And so, yes, there is something about freedom of expression, but also I would say that spiritually, um, there is definitely something about like your mind risks being kind of sickened by the amount of like toxic information that you can consume. The media that you consume is very important to your psyche and spiritually to pretty much your soul, and it can undo a lot of damage. And I feel like even though it's out of left field, there has always been something about, I would say in France at least, where there is this underlayer of like, hey, we're trying to really be careful about the thing that, especially young people consume, because some of my former students, for example, middle school, so 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds, see videos on Telegram of people being beheaded, of guns or violence. And I feel that's not the that's that's just the tip of the iceberg if nobody knows what's going on. So I can understand where um the police is coming from. I can understand also that it's weird. Um, there are a few things to work out there for sure, but I would have a tendency to say that there is no balance in Telegram, and I think that can be at least mentally pretty dangerous. And I think people can feel how, even though it's not explainable yet, people can feel like the tension there, and the discrepancies happening. But that's my view of it. So maybe you guys have a different view. And I would be curious to know what it feels, how it feels to you. And Bill, did you want to say something? It feels like you're thinking, not just thinking as
Yeah,
well.
so I'm kind of, as you asked me, I was like, how do I actually feel about it? And like, I'm very much for the clarity around certain types of censure, for a lack of a better word at this point, for a certain level of age appropriate consumption. Like I very much support that type of thing, because I feel like there's too much that can influence younger minds that don't always understand things in context, or are not always able to consider the ramifications of some of the things that they're seeing. So I'm definitely on the page of there needs to be a level of protection. I also believe that just for as a platform, a certain level of regulation, and I think that's really it, right? It's about regulation on a level without too much control, because the fact is we do live in a society that people are going to look for and find that type of information regardless of what you do. There's just too many groups that will allow a level of membership that hides through content and stuff like that. So there is, for me, a level of regulation is definitely appropriate, and definitely a level of regulation for age appropriate consumption. I just also don't support the sense of Big Brother is watching you and kind of teaching you how to be a palatable human being. So yes, it's kind of a little bit more of a people should have the freedom without that freedom encroaching on other people's freedom. So it's kind of a dual-edged sword balance, But again, there has to be some type of balance. And I think that's what all of this is calling for. So, you can't play in either extreme where there's no regulation versus over-regulation. You kind of have to find that happy medium, and you have to find that happy medium for age-related consumption, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do agree.
Age-appropriate consumption, not age-related necessarily.
Right. I do agree there is something about like props to him for refusing the Russian government access to Telegram. It was definitely the right move, and his intention of freedom of expression was the right thing to do there. But also I think like most groups, they will find a way to discuss their conspiracy theories or extreme political views anywhere if they want to. So and I think France was not pointing at that, and that was a good strategy. Probably weird to still arrest the CEO, but yeah. But yeah, there's pretty much like a thing of like he did not respect like the culture there of like the European Union requires community guidelines that they are sure that the social media is maintaining in order to be able to access them in their countries. And that's been like that for everyone. And in order to do business in a country, you need to comply with the country's laws. So I think the balance is just fair. And really like France, by saying he's not complying to the laws, is like requiring the bare minimum of him in order to exist there, especially because it's his country. So um yeah, that's just my feeling on it. I don't know if there's more. Do you guys feel like there is more to the story? Do you have any insights, feelings to share?
Yeah, I can understand the big brother concept of like constraining in our freedom, but I feel that in certain circumstances there needs to be very strict regulation in order for balance. And like Granville said, there will be a consciousness that will do what that consciousness does, and it will find another way, another means of illegal action. But in terms of regulations, it needs to be a very strict and aligned regulation.
Isaiah?
Yeah, it's just so interesting that with the last topic and this topic, which they couldn't be more different, but this theme of freedom is the same, of this healing freedom. What is real freedom? It's actually not just being all out there and doing whatever you want. It's boundaries, discipline, and authenticity and respecting yourself. So it's so cool that just this healing theme of what is real freedom is has come up with both of these topics.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because they're so different.
Yeah.
But the healing just comes up. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and I can understand what people are saying about like they're saying that well this isn't really like they're saying that like oh they're just trying to constrain free speech and stuff like that, but there's some things that you don't want. Like free speech doesn't mean you have a good platform for terrorists or child traffickers.
That's not freedom
to communicate. Yeah,
that's not free speech. Right? Yeah.
But on the other hand, I can understand because I think there's kind of this vibe of like very, very much hostility, from the French government and definitely from the British government. I mean, the UK government, right? Like BBC is not a fan of him, Pavel Durov, because of the far right thing. And it's kind of like, well, I've also been feeling kind of like, well, when it comes to like misinformation, I almost feel like, I don't know. Yes, misinformation can be harmful for people, but it's like trying to suppress and decide like what is correct and what isn't can be kind of it can only upset people more and inflame it more. And they think, oh, they're trying to suppress us. They're trying to suppress the truth. And then like that just adds fuel to the fire, and I'm kind of skeptical about that. But that I don't think that's what this arrest was about. I think it was just about not complying with law enforcement. But part of me was also wondering, like, did the CEO of the company really need to be arrested for that? Like, could there not be other things?
Yeah,
To,
that's what Telegram was pretty
I was,
much saying on
yeah,
behalf of them publicly. The CEO should not be representing the the whole company in terms of like the compliance of the company. But yeah, it's kind of weird. I know it's like there's a weird energy there. I agree with you. Like people need to express their opinions. Like suppressing them are only going to make them polarize more. And they need to go through the lessons that they are going through, and maybe sometimes like they're just going to choose to be on one side anyway, of an extremist political spectrum or view. So you can really like stop them there. But yeah, there's a little hostility, and I would say France pretty much has a problem of control to heal. So it can also play a factor in the fact that they arrested Durov, which is again like kind of a weird move, but yeah.
So I do want to make the argument for upholding people accountable in some way or another. And the reason for it is that we operate in a system that requires regulation from a legal perspective. So there has to be a level of respect in terms of the appropriateness of your business to the laws of the country that you're operating in. I mean, it's not the Wild Wild West. You don't get to make it up as you go along. You kind of need to participate from a legal point of view in the country that you're operating in. Otherwise, you are sowing anarchy. And we all know that anarchy has never benefited anybody in any way. So I definitely want to argue for some level of holding people accountable for honoring the laws of the country within which they operate.
And I get it, right? Because we have countries that are so censored, like Saudi Arabia doesn't allow magazines of fashion because it looks like pornography. So it's really important to establish like fundamentals that are aligned to every universal person. That's just why teachings of union is so good because it allows to establish that foundation. Why religious, religion is not always like bad because it has like the commandments, it has like a structure of integrity that you can always look to when you're regulating things.
Yeah, and I'm loving Isaiah's point of views tonight because he pretty much said like discipline is freedom, and I can wholeheartedly agree with that. And Grenville as well, like there's something about like I saw a video one day last week, I think, about like people saying like you're free to do whatever you want, or like your actions only affects you, or your decisions only affects you. And someone said like, I disagree. I think your decisions and your freedom are part of a whole microcosm and macrocosm of people that it will probably impact. And so while making choices for you, you also have to be mindful of the environment around you, and that is also like the humans around you. And I feel like in every areas of our lives right now as humans, we are learning that in terms of environment, in terms of protecting each other, in terms of social protection, and in terms of quite literally having ground rules about living with each other from country to country, from social media to social media, from groups to groups, and yeah, it's kind of beautiful to see. It's a little bit chaotic, but I think it is worth it. It is worth it to have these discussions because when we have these discussions, quite like literally like Nadia said, in a community like the Church of Union, you get to have more or less ground rules or adapt them according to how it fits everybody. And it's like minimal ground rules and then total freedom to just express yourself, but like the discipline and the foundation to just uphold a life like that. And I think it's pretty cool.
Dad, I think just what you spoke to, Urino, is literally the part of discipline that talks to boundaries, right? So everybody running roughshod over every nuance in society is going to probably result in us regressing as opposed to progressing. So we do need to be clear about whether we progress for the sake of progress or progress for the sake and the value of humanity.
True. Yeah, so, oh, Sage wanted to say something.
Oh,
So,
I like how mindful came up again. It was very mindful. Very.
it's work. You're going to traumatize them now. Stop. Yeah, so making making choices, new choices and new innovations that actually help humanity, not make it regress. So I like this concept, and I wonder if it's going to tie out with the last topic that we can discuss tonight. Um, I wanted to go over in the last few minutes something that is geopolitics, and it's around China and Russia joining their military training. And Grenville is the one that did the research for that. So, Grenville, would you like to sum up your findings a little bit?
Yeah, so thank you. So we've talked about this quasi partnership between Russia and China in various forms, from China starting to consume more of Russia's spillover energy resources because of the sanctions and stuff like that. So that alliance has been almost, almost a gentleman's agreement, if we can use that conceptualization under these circumstances. And now they've started to formalize it a little bit more in terms of doing joint military activities to and partially as a show of standing together against the more democratized West, specifically the US, who has strategic interests in the South China Sea, as the kind of the opponent. And part of the article speaks to, in the part of the geopolitical news article speaks to the fact that China wouldn't have actually been able to reach US shores with their bombers and stuff like that if they don't have that partnership where they actually are using Russian Air Force bases and doing these joint military exercises. So the idea is that they want the sense is that they're sending a message to the West, who would have previously thought that they would have fought on two separate fronts and have not necessarily considered the combination of these two nuclear enabled countries joining forces, which means that their military strategies need to be adapted to consider the possibility. Because part of it is that because of these joint military exercises, Chinese fighter jets were able to patrol off of the coast of Alaska, which brings them significantly closer to the US, where they may not have been able to do so before. So obviously, that changes the tactic of how do we build countermeasures in considering that we need to have some level of counter to these military exercises. Yes, because the fact of the matter is, in principle, it's called war games, but we don't necessarily ever want to see it really play out. So we do need to be geared for the potentiality. And I think as much as it sounds horrible that they're joining forces, I think it's a smart move in terms of highlighting vulnerabilities that the US needs to take into consideration in their military strategies. They've served their purpose. We don't like the purpose that they're serving, but they serve the purpose. They've opened people's eyes to the possibility that a partnership here could have ramifications and could have very serious ramifications, and therefore we need to be prepared for it.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for a synopsis. I summary of it. I haven't studied international law for years, but I wonder if there is not like a treaty talking about like healthy alliance there. But the thing is like it's such a gray zone to try to define a healthy partnership because obviously like countries have the right to partner together, befriend one another, kind of like humans. And we don't necessarily know the intent of them partnering together at until they do something with each other. So it's kind of a little bit tricky there, but also it pretty much shows the hands they're playing. And I think it clarifies a few things for a lot of people because a lot of people are still you know being pretty mild about China overall. And maybe that will wake up people to like, oh, actually, China is obviously very, very, very culturally interesting. But at this time, it's not the choice that they're making. And maybe like the tourism and culture is trying to erase the fact that uh, politically and militarily, they're um they're making moves that don't necessarily feel good if you look at their allies, I would say. But I'm curious to know what Sage think about that, if you have insights on it or if you have anything to share, and Isaiah and Nadia as well.
So I just want to add something before you guys share, is that part of it was a very interesting discovery for me, and I'm not sure if everybody else is aware of this, or maybe it's just a little bit of but when we hear China and Russia, we almost assume that they are so far apart from an actual distance point of view, but they actually share a land border. And that just makes it very interesting to realize that there could be many more ramifications to this partnership. Yes, they would need to travel large distances to move equipment and things like that, but they actually share a land border.
They have thousands of kilometers of land borders, and even the countries in between them are countries that they are more or less control. So, yes, yes, it's a big part of the world that they own, basically. Yeah, Sage, did you have something to say about this?
Yeah, I feel that I I appreciated what you said about that, Granville, because it's like, yeah, like these types of military exercises, they help the US see like a potential vulnerability there, and we need to like speaking for like Americans and the American government, like we need to be prepared if such a thing were to happen, because you can't just write it off. Sometimes there's a tendency to just write this kind of thing off, like the US-China alliance, because we're aware that the fundamentals of the relationship between the two countries are not good. Like they're not conducive to like a true alliance, right? It's basically two parties kind of like trying to get something from each, trying to like what's the word? Like use each other basically for like in a very like pragmatic way, but not, it's not really based on shared values. Or I guess if your shared value is based in ego, like you're banding together because you like control, or you like tyranny, or you like this or that, it's not really, there's not going to be a harmonious partnership. Like, so I think everybody knows that, but that doesn't mean that they could never come together for a combined military purpose, right? So just because their alliance is like not actually solid and based in like real good values, and so it won't, it, you know, it won't last like ultimately, that doesn't mean that you can just discount it. So I think that's important to bring up, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, I also agree with that. And I feel like who your company is, who your friends are, speaks a lot about your energy and the energy that you're in. So then that gives us the question of who our alliance is and who will we partner with in order for us to gain that power partnership that they have gained now.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe to conclude, the thing is, I think China has the second military power in the world, but compared to the US, they're still like way, way, way behind. So the second military power is like way behind the US. And so it may speak of a vulnerability or fear there to have an alliance with Russia because like they have, I guess they have similar pragmatic goals. I wouldn't say go so far as saying that they have similar values, but they always had similar pragmatic goals and ways to see their people and see their country. And and yeah, I think even with a Russia that is weakened, they're trying to do maths and maybe add to the weight of their military power, maybe. So there are a lot of factors to take into account. Obviously, like we know for many wars that the size of the military power doesn't always make the win. Um, Case in point, Ukraine, Russia right now, especially with Ukraine kind of entering Russia's land to try to regain stuff. But we'll just have to survey how this moves because like the different little components that we've talked about today are going to be like huge factors in the way this goes in the future. So we'll probably get to talk about it a bit more. But for now, it is time. Thank you to everyone who watched our discussion live, and thank you to everyone who also watched us from YouTube. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and share if you want us to do more of those. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye bye.